mentioned a little bit about we should learn some things from our allies like the Philippines. What do you think is the number one thing the U.S. needs to learn from the Philippines?
Don't say balut.
Wow. Wow. I think, Shelley, the biggest problem is this. Today, we have all these statements from our ambassador, from our Secretary of State, from our president, on and on about an ironclad relationship standing shoulder to shoulder. And I think that we need a course, mandatory course in the Foreign Service Institute for our State Department. That's the title of the course is called The Care and Feeding of Allies. It doesn't exist, I can tell you that right now. But I think the biggest thing that the United States needs to learn to do is to learn how to be consistent and stand with our allies and support them. And it's not just the Philippines, it's stand with the UK, stand with Japan, stand with South Korea. And we could do a much better job of that. And in countries like the Philippines, it's the political situation on the ground is very complicated. There are a lot of cracks that are there that it's hard for our government officials who parachute in and parachute out to really understand the situation. So naturally, they make some boneheaded mistakes. But I think the idea of becoming a friend, the most important thing about being a friend is, okay, what do we need to do? And one of the important things our country needs to do is we need to be able to help with this economic warfare situation. And the way that we do that is through trade and business to help strengthen the economy. This is in the Pacific Islands. This is throughout the whole First Island chain. And this business of just trying to negotiate a framework for some kind of business deal, trade deal, where there's no there. It's hollow, it's empty. You have a whole series of general pronouncements. That's not going to cut it. And what we need to be doing is strengthening our allies with real trade agreements and business deals. And I hope we get to a situation where our allies, in terms of maritime shipbuilding and aviation and munitions and cybersecurity, all these important national defense issues, can help each other and not just have our country supply all the artillery shells, for example. Some of our allies could be doing this. In the UK, the EU just announced they're not going to be able to donate any more artillery shells for Ukraine. Well, we shouldn't be in this kind of situation. And that's all about working as a true friend and then developing on the economic side of things. And that's where the real power of our country is, I think, is to stand on our rock and be a friend, if that makes sense.
I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, it actually reminds me of something I think Matt Turpin said in his China newsletter about how really the battles of the new Cold War are going to be on the economic side, and understanding economic and commercial security and how they relate to like geopolitics is going to be so crucial for the future. And that's not how we've been taught to look at trade and economics and all of that stuff in the last 30 years or so.
This is where our leadership in Washington does not understand the economic warfare side or peace component, if you will, of political warfare. Because if you really understood that, then you would do something about it. And the business of having no there trade agreements that only helps China. And what I have heard repeatedly in the Philippines and Taiwan is, we'd like to have a real trade relationship and more business with the United States. And how can we do this? And we need to have our government get in the fight That's the difference in talking about these kind of issues with the Philippine officials is, Shelley, they have the smoke of battle all over them. And the reason is they are in the fight and they know it. In our situation, honestly, the best that we can get is some chest thumping and some statements from our leadership. They're not in the fight and they don't really understand it. They pretend to understand it, but they don't. And so this is where part of the burden for this teaching in the future comes to the three of you, Matt, Shelley, and Chris. Keep it up.
Well, I agree with that statement. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here. Aloha.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting to learn what's happening in the Philippines, and it kind of gives you hope to see a country kind of turn it around and start really fighting the CCP on this political warfare grounds, right? But one thing I noticed is that it is going to be hard to deal, like when David was talking about, oh, their power grid is controlled by China State Grid Corporation, or they have all this Huawei and ZTE equipment that they have to deal with now. Like, it's pretty hard to deal with this after you're so far in. And this is the concern I have with about the US. Like, it feels like it usually takes some big crisis to wake people up.
Should have been the spy balloon.
I mean, that's not really a crisis, but yeah, there could have been. I mean, it really should have been COVID.
I was going to say, there was a thing that came from a Chinese lab, allegedly.
Whoa. We are on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say that because the censors are listening. But yes, I mean, to your point, yes. I'm really glad that even though Chris wasn't here today, that you were here, because while I make terrible jokes about digging to America, you basically rescue it with intelligent comments about, like, Matt Turpin's thing about, economic something.
Yes, the comment about economic something is exactly what we're talking about now. It's been a long week.
Thanks for watching anyway.